Peace, my people. Welcome to I Must Be BUGN, where we have honest, relatable conversations packed with powerful insights that spark curiosity and help melanated, gifted, and neurodivergent folks feel seen, safe, and celebrated. Here, labels don't have to feel like pathology, and complexity feels comfortable. Welcome to the latest episode of I Must Be BUGN. As always, so honored for you to be here. Today is a little bit of a different episode. It's going to be kind of quick, but I'll get into why that is. But let's start the way that we always start. My name is Sheldon Gay, your host. I use pronouns he and him. I am a Black man with light brown skin in my 40s. I have black curly hair that's faded on the side and the back. I have on a red hoodie of my design, which says "Love does not require perfection." Check it out in the shop online. I have on my right wrist a black watch. I have a mustache as well as a little tuft of hair on my chin. I call it goatee. Today I have on my black over-ear headphones. I have behind me a series of some of my favorite personal items and books, including a pillow of my design, which says "Labels don't have to feel like pathology." And today is going to be a bit of a reflection episode of sorts. Right now, I am in the midst of really dialing into some deep rest and reflection for the end of the year. And I'm hoping that you're getting the opportunity to do that as well. I'm preparing for what is going to be a major year for me and for this business and for the work that I'm going to be able to do for the larger community. More details to come, obviously, but I'm really taking this time to dial into rest and to dial into reflection and dial into whimsy and to all the things that really are the fundamental things that we're doing all this other stuff for, right? And so to that end, in this new year, before I get into anything else I need to say in this episode, I need you to kind of like come in closer. I need you to hear me say this. I need your support to make 2026 an absolutely amazing and transformative year, not only for me, but for others who benefit from the kinds of discussions that we're having here on this podcast. I need your support. By the end of 2026, I have a goal of being on at least 50 stages, whether that be an actual stage or even a virtual one. And so to do that, I need your help by doing something so simple. And that is just sharing my work with just one person who has the ability to put me on that stage. Now, again, that stage may be at an office, at a conference, at a school, or even, another podcast. But I just need you to take that time and share my work with just one person. And if you are needing some help with text, you don't know necessarily what to say, in the show notes is some text that I've prepared to send a short note. Not a lot of frill, not a lot of fuss. And so, again, I just ask that you do that, because this is going to be the year in which things really have to change for particularly Black and otherwise melanated, gifted, and neurodivergent folks. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do as men. We have a lot to do as Black men. We have a lot to do as, again, a larger melanated and marginalized community. And I want to be a part of that transformation. And so if you think that my voice, my work is something that's worthy of being shared, then again, I just ask that you share this with just one person. As well, don't forget that, as I mentioned, I've got some pretty cool merch on the website. I know many of you have already purchased things, and I thank you again for that from the bottom of my heart. But if you don't know, or if you've forgotten, again, I've got lots of t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies. I got stickers. I got some cool mugs that change when you put your tea or your coffee in them. So go to the website, sheldongaysbugn.com slash shop. A lot of in there, right? But yeah, go and check that out. And again, if you already have some, fantastic. Consider buying some for someone else. For those who are listening, go ahead and use the coupon code REST, REST, and I'm going to give you 20% off. So again, buy something for someone for the holidays, or share it with someone and share that code with them and let them purchase something for themselves. Okay. So thank you for indulging me on that part. Again, this is going to be a relatively straightforward episode. What I thought was important, I mean, we've got a lot of time now. A lot of us, again, are going to be traveling. We're going to be taking our own breaks. There's going to be a much slower pace here, as we head into the new year. And so this is also a good opportunity to circle back on some episodes that maybe you may have missed, particularly from the beginning, or the ones that you may have missed, from just a few weeks ago. In the last, month or so, we've had a lot of new listeners, a lot of new followers. And so again, maybe you've only heard the most recent episode, but this is a time to go ahead and check out, some of those earlier episodes. And so to that end, I've picked a few of my favorite episodes that I think are worthy of revisiting. And so, let me share what those are. And all of these will be linked in the show notes. So no need to necessarily figure out how to find them. So the first episode that I suggest that you go back and listen to is one of my first episodes, which is called Why Are We Buggin'? And again, this was one of my original episodes. It was meant to only, be one of my only episodes. For those that remember, this podcast was going to be maybe 4 episodes, maybe 6 at the most when I initially thought about it. And so this episode was one of those core episodes that I felt like was important for me to use to share my story and to help people understand, why is this worth talking about? I know a lot of people are kind of, they question well, why do you need, a diagnosis, or why do you need to be identified, or why do you need to know this about yourself? Like, you've been XYZ for, so long. Now you're an adult. Like, why does it matter? And so this episode talks a bit about why that's important. It also just kind of gives you an idea of what it means to be Black, gifted, and otherwise neurodivergent. And again, why that particular story is important to tell. There are lots of people out there telling all kinds of stories, and frankly, a lot of them center whiteness and other privileged identities. And so for those of us that don't hold those identities, that don't hold that privilege, our stories are important to be told, right? And so this episode gives you, a bit of insight into that. And so another episode, which is one of my recent episodes from this season, is called Anger is Necessary, or, it talks about anger is necessary for joy. And so why is anger necessary for joy? And again, it's a relatively recent episode, but I think it's actually really important for this time of year as we move on to the new calendar year. Many of us are going to spend the next couple of weeks, reflecting on things that we don't like about how our life is set up right now, and making plans to then, figure out how we want them to be different. And so there's something to be said about ensuring we're framing everything from a place of what we want rather than the things that we don't want. Shout out to those of us who believe in the power and there's the specificity of how we speak words into our life. But it's also critical that we find ways to make peace with expressing and acknowledging the grief in what we're holding on to. If we can't speak to that grief, we can't let it go, right? And what we want to do in the new year is to be able to truly make peace with the things that are weighing us down, to let go of that baggage that we're holding on to. And so this episode is about making space for the healthy expression of anger in ourselves and in our relationships so that we can have the full access to joy. Because again, if we have all this baggage that's holding us down, like there's literally less space in our lives for joy. Another episode from this season that I suggest you go back and listen to if you haven't already is the one talking about whether or not it's a neurodivergent excuse or a reason. And so, again, this is really important. I know a lot of us are talking about improving our relationships and understanding, how we're showing up and why people just don't understand us, right? And again, this is a topic that particularly in neurodivergent spaces gets circulated a lot. And frankly, it's often misunderstood. And I can understand why, but this episode is about dialing in and really understanding what the difference actually is between an excuse and a reason. It makes it really, really crystal clear, again, about what that difference is. But I don't just leave you there. I also offer some key insights into what you can do once you understand that difference, right? And how you empower yourself to express your needs while also remaining accountable, which is the critical piece. Another episode that I would suggest, the third one, would be one, called It Must Be My Migo. And so this is an episode from last season, but it's really important in my eyes. If you really want to understand this work, if you really want to understand, my work and my podcast and, what I'm intending to be sharing with people going forward, it's really, again, about this core principle, about grappling with our ego. And, the truth is that sometimes people make ego out to be just this bad thing that, that's something that we should be hiding or suppressing. But the truth is that our ego can also be our friend, right? Because it can help us do things like show up in spaces where fear might limit our access to joy, where fear might limit our access to abundance, right? Where we can boldly do and ask for things that we otherwise may not have the courage to. And if we're not able to do that, we can never truly experience the great things that we pray for, that we hope for here in the now. And so listen to this episode to learn about understanding who you truly are, why you get so easily defensive or offended, and how to let go of defending that idea of who you are so that you can more freely exist and feel more empowered in who you are. Another episode, and this one's again from this season, is my interview with Janelle Johnson called, Mom, I'm Autistic. And it's absolutely one of my favorite guest episodes. Janelle, again, is doing some absolutely amazing research. Check out her work. She's doing a lot of important research around neurodivergence. And so what I particularly appreciate about this episode was her openness, not only about her self-identification journey, which I think a lot of you will absolutely resonate with, or, even if you don't necessarily personally not necessarily understand the story, but if it's not something that personally aligns with your journey, I think it will help you understand why this work is so important and why telling our stories is so important, right? To help people who maybe, again, diagnosing other people, but can't even at the time see it in themselves until something just clicks. What I also really appreciate is her naming her work around her own internalized ableism and how important that was, not only for her to do her work as a therapist, but, to fully love herself, her child, and her family and others in her community. I think it's really, really important because I think a lot of us even though we are neurodivergent and those of us who may identify as being disabled, we still are carrying ableist beliefs from, again, the programming that society puts on us. And so, again, that limits our ability to show up as best we can in community, but certainly it limits our ability to truly love all of who we are from a compassionate point of view. Another episode that I have told people is probably the episode I'm most proud of to date is my episode on grief. And so it's called It Must Be Good Grief. And I believe this one to be probably my most vulnerable and introspective episode. It's a great episode to understand the importance and the power of walking mindfully through the process of transitions. And so you'll get to hear, about, some important and painful deaths of pets, family members, my divorce, and the idea of who Sheldon is, right? And so, again, it's a very, very special episode for me. And it's really about, again, fully understanding that, excuse me, we shouldn't be avoiding grief because grief is a part of love, right? And so the deeper the grief, the deeper the signal is that the love is there or was there, and that we still have a connection to those people and those things that we have lost in the physical, but remain with us, right? I know a lot of grief, particularly around the loss of a loved one, is around the fact that there's this sense that they're not there, that we've lost them completely, that we'd have no access to them. But grief does give us access to them and can remind us of that. And so go check that one out. The last episode that I will share as a suggestion for you to check out is actually an episode where I was interviewed called Compassionate Mirrors on the Cosmic Cheer Squad podcast. And it's possibly my favorite interview with two of my absolute favorite people. I also think it's an episode where I do my best job of expressing my philosophy on how I try to show up in the world. To that end, it's an opportunity that I took to speak to my journey around understanding that often other people's reactions have nothing to do with us, right? I was earlier today, I saw an Instagram post talking about, and actually I had a interaction with someone that I'm building something pretty exciting with that I'll tell you all about in the new year. But, even she was telling me, she's like, Sheldon, I need to tell you that, um, well, I won't say that's for her and I to have a discussion about, but I'll just say that she shared that there were things that she was being triggered by, but it had nothing to do with me. Right. And I loved that interaction because it also made clear for me a very important point around the fact that sometimes the ways in which we're triggered are not about how the other person is showing up. They're just about us being reminded of things from our past. And this goes back to why, again, doing the work that I talked about in these other episodes, right? Understanding one's ego, understanding oneself, processing grief, all these different things, right? Being accountable, right? Am I giving you an excuse or a reason, right? If we can't really understand how people are mirrors for us and how we're mirrors for them, to the point where we say, like, when we say that somebody is people are mirrors, the thing that really upsets us the most is a signal first and foremost about what kind of work we need to do inside of ourselves. Again, it is not about excusing anybody's bad behavior, but it is about us understanding that the more that someone's actions, words, or whatever can completely dysregulate us, the more power that they have over us, which means that we have work to do because no one deserves to have that kind of power over us. But again, this interaction that I had and the thing that I talked about on Instagram earlier was really about sometimes we can enter into really healthy relationships and still be triggered. We can still feel these moments where we want to run, where we want to panic, and where we have opportunities to turn away from self abandonment and self sabotage. And we're not always clear on that. But in this episode, we have a really fantastic discussion about what it means to also be somebody whose light in particular can ruffle feathers, and what it means to accept that and to understand that. I know that my light shines very brightly on a lot of people's darkness. And for a long time, it was tough for me to reconcile that because of how they reacted to that. And now I'm at a place where I understand that differently. I don't want to give away the episode. If you haven't listened to it, again, go and listen to it. I'm linking it in the show notes. It's on my website as well. So again, shout out to B and Chris. Thank you again for having me on. But again, this episode is really about as well. Once we understand how we are showing up, it gives us the opportunity to develop our compassion and our strong boundaries for how, we interact with others. And so that's a nice little pot of episodes to check out. Feel free to just go back to the beginning and start at the beginning. Like, who am I to stop you from having a good time? But again, there are lots of other great episodes that I love, but I wanted to make this a relatively short list. So again, if you also can watch them on YouTube, certainly like and subscribe or whatever on your favorite podcast platform. But please also watch on YouTube. Even on YouTube, you can just start the episode playing, put it on mute, just let it play. This will help other people like us find my work. And so that's another way that, I'm asking you to help out. Obviously, again, same thing there. Like and subscribe and leave comments. Again, this really helps people find this work. And so, the other thing I was going to say is that, particularly with this season, if you watch on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube now, you can see this funny looking mug, right? There's actual video, not just, audio. So if that's something that, helps you to stay engaged, definitely go and check out episodes on YouTube. So with that, I'm just going to circle back and say again, I need your help. I'd love your support to achieve my goal of being on 50 stages in 2026. So please do share this work with at least one person. Just one. I promise you that 10 seconds that it takes will have an absolutely amazing outcome for me and for all the people who hit me up all the time talking about how this work is helping them to love themselves and to show up in a way that's different, to ask questions that they had never been able to ask in a compassionate way before. So I hope to see you on a stage, from the stage, I should say. And if you do reach out to somebody, let me know. I'd love to hear about, kind of whose radar I'm on. And I'd love to thank you as well. So let me know. And then again, lastly, please do go to my website, check out the merch, buy something. And as well, if you are somebody right now who is looking for some help navigating your journey into understanding yourself, particularly your giftedness and other neurodivergent ways of being, go to my website, book a call. We can talk about it and make a plan. At this point, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for such an amazing year. Thank you for continuing to listen. I hope to again continue to expand this work, and that's all dependent upon and as a result of you all showing up as well. So thank you again. Peace. Take care. Have an amazing end of the year. See you all in January. Thank you for joining me on another episode of I Must Be BUGN. I hope you felt seen, safe, and celebrated by what you heard today. Don't forget to visit my website, sheldongaysbugn.com, where you can catch all of my episodes, book me to speak, and check out my merch. Don't hesitate to hit me up on socials either. I'm eager to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your stories. Remember, this podcast is all about sharing humanized narratives about who we are and how we contribute to the beautiful and necessary diversity of humanity. This is our place to unmask and just be. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe. It helps our people find community. So until next time, stay up and enjoy who you were meant to be. Ashe.